two. Check two. Hello. Check. Two. Two. What's up, folks?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
The new logo is perfect because it points to the most important person to the Rob Rousseau show, and that is chat.
Thank you, Outrun, for the 17 months resub at tier 2 and for everything you do for this community, Outrun, including helping to create that new logo that's on the screen. Does it point to chat, though? Isn't it pointing literally in the opposite direction? Isn't it pointing in this direction, whereas chat is here? I mean, I guess it points, even because I'm flipped, so I'm looking at chat. It's pointing from my perspective. From my perspective, chat is over there. So maybe, is that what you're talking about? Oh, it points to Twitch chat. Okay. All right. I guess that's true. I guess that's kind of true. I will point out, though, that the chat on the screen is over here. And if you look down here, this arrow here is also going up in this direction also. You see it's going up, it's pointing like up here. You see that? It just depends on what point you're looking at. What do we think about that? Thanks again, Outrun, and thanks so much to Ben, Bleep Plump Ben, for 17 months tier 1. Thank you, Ben. I really appreciate that. IMO, no one reads the on-screen chat. It's just keys jingling to keep people engaged. Maybe that's it. Sometimes I read it. Sometimes, like when I'm looking at the screen, right now, I'm looking at that one. Who has 2 thumbs and is talking about arrows? It's pointing forward. Join the forward party today. We have neither left nor right, but forward-thinking consensus positions on these things. Yeah. Well, I guess there's something to that. I'm straight from the tap. Straight from the tap, baby. What's up, everybody? What is up? I went out to see other human beings last night.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Surf's up.
JW Grimy, thanks for the 5 months of tier 1. Thank you very much. I went out to see other human beings last night. I hung out with host of the amazing and popular podcast Tech Won't Save Us, published author Paris Marx. I got to meet Paris Marx IRL last night, along with Andre Goulet from Ricochet, Michael Buchert from Canadians for Peace and Justice in Middle East. Who else was there? Aaron Giovanone from the video podcast Sweater Weather, which I also recommend if you're into kind of obscure Canadian cultural references and leftism. Aaron Giovanone is the one who educated us on our pal Norman Bethune, friend of the stream Norman Bethune, in the Donald Sutherland film about Bethune. It was cool. It was very cool. I enjoyed it a lot. It was super spreading in the free world. We were socially distanced. It was in the park. It was an outside meetup. There was no super spreading, and I wore my M95 mask on the metro on the way there. The fucking last thing that I want right now is to get COVID again, believe me. So, fresh off COVID goes into public. It was very safe. Okay, I was very careful. Believe me, I do not want to get COVID again. I certainly don't want to give it to anybody. But it was nice. It was nice to go, especially after having COVID, especially over the last week or so.
You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Love to slub.
Thank you, GMO Radio. Thanks for the 11 months resub at Tier 2 GMO. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. Almost all year. Almost an entire year. Yeah, it was nice just to like get out of my house for a little bit and go see other neighborhoods or whatever. I think I was going a little bit stir crazy, not ever really leaving the apartment. So it was nice to see some other people. I think we got a picture here. I think we can show you a picture. We can show you a picture here. Where is it? I think it was from the Harbinger account. I think Andre posted on the Harbinger account. Yeah. Here it is. Here it is. There's me in real life. In real life with other people. You can see Paris there. See Michael Buchert there. There's Andre. A classic Andre Goulet photo where it's very easy to see what's going on. Good stuff. It was nice. It's not a bar, it's a terrace. It's outside, okay? It was very safe. Believe me. Yeah, it's a terrace. You go out to sit on the terrace. That's what it's called. Big scandalous photos emerge of the TRRS party leader dancing and drinking with friends and having a good time. And I did test positive for drugs afterwards. Were you wearing a TRRS hoodie? Yes, I was. I was wearing the hoodie and the t-shirt underneath. I was wearing the hoodie and the TRRS t-shirt underneath. The Fighting Momo's shirt that I was wearing yesterday. Because I've now transitioned into a full wear my own merch guy. I wear my own merch now all the time. It's like my main thing that I do. Hey, Husker, what's up? There's nothing wrong with wearing your own merch. Did they really say it like that? Of course they do. Yeah. You go ahead and sit on the terrace. Getting closer and closer to the point where we have to coup Rob. I don't think that's true.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Over 1 year of being immune to propaganda.
Thank you, Tiniest Boop, for the 13 months, over 1 year of Tier 1. Thank you, Tiniest Boop. I fought a Tarrasque once in D&D. Okay, how was that? How did that go? Not well. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. No, I don't think we are getting close to the point where we have to coup Rob, though. I don't think that's accurate. If I can just push back on that ever so slightly. This whole coup Rob thing. I don't think that's true. I don't think that is going to be happening. So you can put all your worries about that to bed. What's Black Ribbon Day? Okay, we're going to get into that. Don't worry. We're going to talk about Black Ribbon Day. Just to give you the basic idea, it's a fake holiday that we celebrate in Canada, which is like, it's basically horseshoe theory, the holiday. It's double genocide theory, officially state-sanctioned Holocaust revisionism. That's what it is. No, there won't be a coup tomorrow either. No. That is not true. That is not correct. Rob would look bang in a Kim suit. Just saying, I do want to get one of those like Mao blazers. I think I could pull it off. Play the pronunciation.
TRRS.
Mais c'est pas la même chose là. C'est pas la même chose. C'est une terrasse en esti. You saw nothing, Lodane. You saw nothing. He was whispering to Momo that he hopes she's vaccinated. Oh, you know what I have to do too is make another appointment. I have to make another appointment for Momo's shave. Momo's grooming. She was supposed to have an appointment last week finally, and I had COVID. I couldn't go. I was sick. I gotta remake an appointment now. Okay, this is sick. This is sick. I totally think I could pull this off. This one has dragon embroidery. That's maybe a little bit much. That's maybe a little bit much. Is there just like a plain? I think the dragon embroidery might be pushing it. It's only $264 Canadian. That's nothing. It's barely anything. For those who weren't in chat earlier this week, Momo needs her butt shaved. That's true. Although now she's not just getting the butt shaved, now she's going to get the full lion cut. Because now it's been enough time that she can just get the full grooming experience. The perfect top to redact a head of state with a homemade blunderbuss. We got to start talking about the Shinzo Abe assassination as probably the most successful assassination of all time, right? Because not only was the assassination successful, but like literally a majority of the country is just like, you know what? I didn't really like that guy. Like, you know what I mean? You had all these Western leaders falling all over themselves to talk about how great Shinzo Abe was, and people in Japan are like, I think we're kind of better off, actually. We're not really into it. We're not really into this guy. Assassinations are back in, baby. Rarely does it go this perfectly, with a homemade blunderbuss as well. Like, there's just so many elements of it that are pretty exceptional. All of Japan woke up and were like, does it feel better today? A man was killed with a science fair volcano, and you're laughing. I just call it like I see it. Death by blunderbuss. Maybe he was like a time traveler. Maybe it was someone going back in time to either start or prevent World War III. Like maybe that's why it's not World War III yet. It was like we were talking about Looper the other day. It was like a Looper situation. Need more anarchist assassins. Well, that's it. It's like I might not agree with anarchists on a lot when it comes to like history. but I'll doff my cap if we see more of this kind of stuff as a joke, because obviously assassinations are horrible. And we don't support that here, obviously, but Shinzo Abe was going to influence Japan to declare war on China, causing World War III, but that man stopped it. I mean, do we know for sure that he didn't? Do we know for sure that he did not? No, we don't. Pretty successful assassination, if you ask me. I mean, Shinzo's party won that election anyways, but it does seem like there's been some reorganizing based on popular sentiment. Shinzo never even acknowledged Japanese war crimes. Well, a big part of his life's work was whitewashing Japanese war crimes. That was a big part of like what he spent his whole career doing. Yeah, or not even acknowledging them, but acknowledging them and saying like they were good, actually. Shinzo Abe brutally murdered by a Diet Coke Mentos gun. Oh man, that just made me think of there's like a TikTok about, I believe it's some like hilarious Japanese guys playing with the Diet Coke and Mentos in the car. Never seen Japanese mainstream news cover an authority figure, let alone Abe, so negatively all of a sudden. It's really remarkable, isn't it? It really is. My mom's great aunt butchered a Japanese soldier with a meat cleaver in her village for torturing her husband and terrorizing the women of the village. Your grandma sounds extreme. Your mom's great aunt sounds extremely based and cool. The trend of Mentos Coke and covering up the bottle with your mouth will never not be funny. Do you know what I'm talking about here? Do you know the specific video that I'm talking about? I have no idea how to search for it. Oh, apparently I do. Apparently I do know how to search for it. You just served Mentos, Coke, car. And that's all.
Lisa, Mentos. Lisa, Mentos. もうやだ。お前何やってんだよ。お前やめろよ。なんでやってんのお前。結局。Lisa, Mentos. もうやだ。お前何やってんだよ。お前やめろよ。なんでやってんのお前。
It cuts off. Unfortunately, it cuts off because he makes a really funny noise afterwards. He makes this really hilarious noise when he's all covered in the foam. Yeah, that would be insanely difficult to clean. That would be really difficult to get rid of all that. Putting it in his mouth is the first. Actually, it's got to go somewhere. It's got to go somewhere. Just dudes being dudes. We love it. We love it. That's pretty funny stuff. Pretty good stuff. Rob does the same with BLLs. That's right. I just shake it up. Oh, I should. You know what I do? I should tweet that I'm live, shouldn't I? I should tweet that I'm live. Oh boy, that's good. As a teenager, I had to do that with a 2-liter of root beer that I accidentally froze, then opened in my mom's carpeted living room. Oh shit. I should tweet that I'm live, shouldn't I? It's a question I will no longer answer, Rob. You know the answer. Look within. Okay. Fine. Fine, I'll tweet that I'm currently streaming on Twitch to try and increase the audience of this program. Okay, that's done. Lately, I've been having some success, I think, just doing the link, just not even doing a picture or anything and just tweeting the link. It almost seems like that works. More people come from that. Don't do it for us. Don't even do it for you. Do it for the people. But isn't that you, though? That is like us, right? I don't know. The other people, okay. I came in before the link like a true valued community member. Obviously, the real heads are already in the chat, and we're just bringing in some other. We're bringing in some other folks. And I have a tweet. We're going to talk about Black Ribbon Day. I have a tweet about this, so I threw it under the link. I threw it under the tweet. I even noticed that the logo's different. New logo. Got one more Mentos Coke vid if you're interested. Yes, I am interested. I'm very interested.
Fanfiction can be strange at times, but if you're just starting out with writing, it allows you to take existing characters and put them in wild situations. Fanfiction can be strange at times.
Rob Head.
Hey, Lily. Lily, thank you very, very much for the 10 months of Prime, a.k.a. Bezos Bucks. Thank you very much, Lily. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you, Lily. Tsunami Bit. I just found you on Twitter. There we go. Look at that. We got actual... people always yell at me to just simply tweet that I'm live. So, right? And we go through this back and forth. Every day where people in this community are like, just use your platform, your 90,000 plus Twitter following to simply alert people to the fact that you're on the platform of Twitch. And people have to like argue with me to do this. And I'm like, no, I won't. Why do I do that? I don't know why. And it literally, he simply tweeted it out. And then I have people coming in here being like, hey, you stream on Twitch? Wow, that's crazy. I followed you on Twitter and you stream on Twitter. I had no idea. And it's like, yes, I've been doing this for two straight years now. 90K Twitter followers. It can't be healthy. No, it can't. No, it can't, and no, it is not. It's extremely unhealthy, actually. Do you know how much fucking psychic damage I had to endure building up that Twitter following? Just a ludicrous amount. I gave myself permanent brain damage getting to that level. Your mentions must be wild. Well, not really, because for like 4 years my mentions have been like it's followers only. It's only people that follow me, which cuts off like 90% of like the wild stuff that you're going to see. The only problem with that sometimes is then when people are starting to like do discourse about you and you get all the quote tweets and everything, you just like don't see it. So there's like an advantage to that, just not seeing any of that shit. Sometimes if you have a viral tweet and then it goes viral with the people that hate you and they're doing the quote tweet dunks and all that, sometimes it's helpful to like know that's going on, but it hurts your brain so much to look at that. So it's like, I would rather just not know. Oh, Ben, I can't name search myself. No. Oh, no. You know what I mean? It's like, sometimes it's like, maybe it's good to know that that's going on, but ultimately I've learned that it's better for me just to not even be aware of any of that. You know? Sometimes I can see the quote tweets going up and the comments going up, but I just don't look at it. Nothing good comes of it. Maybe I'm a drama enjoyer. Maybe. Like, you know. And I understand too, like, that's how you have to grow a platform on any social media website. But it just got to be a point for me where it was just too much. Just too periodic to all my haters posts. Well, that's what I did when people were mad at me about Jon Stewart a few weeks ago. That's what I did. I saw that people were getting mad about it. I didn't want to like look into it too much. Again, I don't, because I just don't look. I don't ever look at that shit. But I just said, look, if you're mad about the Jon Stewart thing, just go to a rally to restore sanity over it. That's all. That's the thing. That's the piece I've had to make with Twitter, is just that I realize sometimes people are going to get upset about things you say, and I've told myself that, like, you know what, do your little dunks, do your little quote tweets, do your little discourse. It's of no concern to me. Do it, everyone. I don't care. That's the attitude that I have to maintain whatever semblance of sanity that I have left. Actually, about that, I've noticed that other streamers don't hyperlink the same way you are. I don't know the right tech terms. I think it has something to do with the algorithm. An example would be hitting how Hassan's link is just typed out twitch.tv/the name. Does that make sense? Maybe. I don't think it makes any difference, because I think it usually gets shortened anyways. If you weren't angering people on Twitter in the year of our Lord, Dark Lord 2022, what are you doing with your life? Well, the danger is when you anger people and then you start, because people say things to you that are mean, that hurt your feelings, and you're like, well, fuck you, and then you want to respond. And then you get pulled into a multi-hour long or sometimes multi-day long.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh my goodness gracious. Red Wine TRRS. Thank you very, very much for 5 gifted subs. That's very, very kind of you. Thank you. My goodness. Poggers, I think, is even what we say about that. Get it wrong. Thank you very much, Red Wine Terroirist. That was very kind of you. But that's what I mean, though. It's like you get drawn in, because then you feel like you need to defend yourself because you see it and you're like, well, I can't just like let this slide. So then you get pulled into this day long like back and forth, and then you've lost. You know what I mean? You've already lost at that point. Even if you're in the correct, even if you're morally correct. Like when people always get mad at me while we're talking about Black Ribbon Day today, people always get mad at me about the like World War II, the bad World War II take that I had or whatever. My bad correct take about the alliance between the United States and Nazi Germany. And once every like couple of months that goes around and that screenshot gets passed around. And I could, even though I'm morally correct, I could get drawn into multi-day long fucking protracted online people's wars about that. But it's easier just to like move on with your life. You know? It's just, and like I've said before many times, if you ever do want to reply to someone on Twitter or any other social media, but like, since we're talking about Twitter, that's what I'm referring to. The thing that I would recommend to everybody is you give yourself one reply. You reply once, and then you go and click mute on the thread, and then you just walk away. You walk away. You just move on with your life. And then the person responds to you or they quote to you or whatever, and that's all. That's all they get. That's all they get. You get the one response, and then I'm going to mute the thread. I'm going to walk away. That's my final word. That's my final word. It doesn't benefit anyone. No matter how correct you are, it doesn't benefit anyone to get involved in like a multi-day long quote tweet battle with some fucking weirdo. You lose in that situation no matter what is going on. Every month, a new World War II takes posting their Hell's account gets created. Starts with that tweet for some reason. And the enjoyable thing is that people always back me up. That's one thing that I really appreciate about that particular tweet. And this is like on the subject of what we're talking about today. People always back. Every time one of those tweets goes viral with that screenshot about my take about the United States and Nazi Germany, their alliance, there's always dozens of replies with the receipts in the comments each and every time. Fellow patriots, I've officially been added to the communism victim count of 100 billion plus because I was arrested by the KGB FBI because I spoke truth about LeBron being a CCP agent. Also, happy Black Ribbon Day to the haters and losers. Thank you, Coal Mine. I'm sorry. Once again, I'm sorry for this persecution that you're experiencing. Just for talking about La China. It's awful I subject myself to this daily. Literally, you gotta walk away. This is the Chad move. This is the Chad move that I encourage everyone to use. One reply. One reply and then you're finished. You're done. Conversation over. It's like the online equivalent of walking away from explosion coolly in slow motion. Like, while there's a big explosion behind you. I'm so tired of this Rob Rousseau character latching onto good people like Jon Stewart, who's fighting for our veterans just for clout. The Canadian. They always remind me. They always remind me in this moment. Okay, Canadian. It's like, all right. All right. I guess we can't comment on the news of the day in the giant global chat room that we're all willingly on, I guess. To comment about the affairs that are happening in the global hegemon that we live directly share a border with. I saw someone on your tweet being like, I'm American, why do I keep seeing this Canadian guy? And I couldn't tell if they meant you or Justin Trudeau. I think they meant Justin Trudeau because that was someone that I've spoken to on a podcast before. But I get a lot of that unironically, so I I understand why it would be confusing. Cool guys don't look back at the explosion. This is what I mean. You don't even flinch. You don't even flinch. Well, American politics doesn't affect you at all. I mean, it kind of American politics affects the entire world. That's kind of the issue, right? Like that's why I was a big supporter of Bernie Sanders, even though that was kind of a stopgap measure. Bernie Sanders being elected president would have had huge downstream consequences for the entire world that we all have to live under this fucking constant dealing always with the consequences and the fallout of things that happen in the United States government. Okay, you were joking, Lexi. I'm sorry to take it seriously because so many people say this shit to me completely unironically. So that's why I get defensive about it. Yeah. But That's my. Oh, no problem, Lexi. I should probably understand that people in this community are able to like joke about this kind of stuff. I'm talking about the heaven we live in as if it's bad. I know. I'm always sat here thinking, I'm British. Why am I seeing all this shit? Piss specifically in and around my water supply. Oh. Yeah, well, that's the other thing, is that American politics and culture gets just beamed to every corner of the planet, especially Canada. Like, you get cable TV in Canada, you get CNN, you get all the American news stations, right? And they monetize and commodify all the news and political culture and all the daily reality show bullshit of the American government, and package that as entertainment for people in Canada and all over the world. And culture as well have dominated, pop culture and music and films in Canada and all over the world. So it's like we all live in America. Like everyone in the world is just forced to live in America. Canada is like the number 2 colony of the US. Yeah, exactly. The Canadian convoy member tried to cite the Bill of Rights in his defense, and act like U.S. politics aren't impactful. That's right. We all live in America. In fact, I remember seeing the director of Parasite in his interviews for talking about the film. He said something to the effect of like, we all live in the same country called capitalism. Everyone globally should get to vote in Americans' elections. Yeah, it's like, I think we've talked about this before, Matt, but I think that was what we settled on when it comes to American elections, is that Canadians should get half a vote, not a full vote, but half a vote, and people in the global south should get 2 votes. Right? The Canadians should get a say, not a full share. But people in the global south should get 2 votes in the United States elections. I think, who says no? I think that's a good solution. But no Australians. No, they don't count as the global south. They don't count. They get nothing. Next election, I'll let the Canadians in chat vote how I will vote with my American vote. That's a pretty good compromise. That's a good compromise. People in the U.S. should get none. Less than normal. They already get barely any votes at all, but... What about the Kiwis? I would say only the, Maori. Not like white settler Kiwis. What do we think about this? Is that how you pronounce that? I do not know. Probably not. Most likely not. It's Maori. Okay. Maori. Okay. Thank you for correcting me. That's useful information. Maori. Okay. It's one of those words that I've read many, many times, and it's like when I'm on stream and it's coming out of my mouth and I realize I've never said this out loud before. It's one of those words. That happens streaming sometimes when you're like, I've never attempted to say this out loud, and I'm doing it right now for an audience of, a couple hundred people. Surely you're joking about TRRS, though. No. in Montreal or Quebec. You go out with your friends to the pub or whatever. You have a nice evening hanging out on the terrace. It's being mid-step and realizing you're unsure if there's another stepping stone or not. That's true. It's not terrace, no. Absolutely not. I can't tell this terrace thing. It's not a bit. On va avec les amis on assis sur la terrasse avec la bière.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all
C'est
this.
délicieux.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Do not ever say terrace that way in my good Christian home.
Thank you very much, Riskinverse, for the gifted sub. Very, very kind of you, Riskinverse. And thank you, Marina, as well. Valued community member Marina Dove, who everyone should also follow. The 10 months of tier 1. I'm sorry, but that's just how we say it here, all right? It's just how we say it here. Excuse me for being part of a different culture. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. Oh. Rob is sitting on une terrasse, manging a baguette while we're all here waiting to hear the damn news. Jesus. Oh boy. And when you all come visit me here in Montreal, we're going to go to a terrace and we're going to have a lovely evening. Mais le culture français et le culture québécois, c'est vraiment pas la même chose là. C'est complètement différent. Les deux affaires là. French is insane for not having a word for numbers 80, 99. Yeah, exactly. It's just 420. 421, 420, 422. And then it's 420, 10, 1. 420, 10, 2. Yeah, when you get up past 70, into the 80s, c'est 80. 80, 81, 82. And 90 is 90, which means 420, 10. $80 plus 19. That's right. That's 99. 99. So we can count to 80. Just that's what it's called. That's just what it's called. 90 nuts. Oh my gosh. That's outrageous. Oh man, this is my culture, and people get confused about this. People think I'm French Canadian, which I'm not. I'm very, very English. I grew up speaking English in my house. I went to English school. I have a degree in English literature. I know I have Robert Rousseau, c'est le nom le plus français dans tout le monde. Là, je sais ça. I know that. I know I have the most French name you can possibly imagine. I'm really not French Canadian though. It's very confusing to people that live here in Quebec as well. When I go to get my like license or whatever, and they see Robert Rousseau, and they're like, "There's no way this guy's English," but I am. When we were learning French in Alabama, quand le prof dit le mot 19, mes amis rigolent que le mot 19 est comparable de 10 nuts. Oh my gosh. 19, I mean, I guess. If your name was like Jean Robert, you'd be a real French Canadian. That's right. The real French Canadians always have two names. They've always got two names. Did your ancestors steal a French name or something? No, I have French ancestry, but just like over time, like my grandparents on my dad's side were both technically Francophone, but I think mostly spoke English at home. And they, like, my dad grew up in Windsor, Ontario. I believe, Rob, I'm not Arab, but I have a very Arabic first and last name. These are the struggles that we have to go through. In French is LOL, in French is MDR, which stands for mort de rire, or dying from laughter. I did not know that. I never knew why my fiance at the time would write MDR when I write LOL, because it sounds like murder. So it's like you think she's laughing about something, she's like, murder. I didn't know about that. One of the French expressions that it took me a while to understand, because like sometimes like you know the words, but sometimes they'll like if you use idioms or whatever,
this is some
or
guy,
expressions.
Rob Russo, some leftist based in Canada. I was turned on to this sick individual, and I found this.
Majority Report, thank you very much for the raid. Look at that. Welcome, Raiders. Get in here. Get into the chat. Hello and welcome. I am Rob. You might know me from Twitter. You might know me from the Insurgents podcast that I do with my friend Jordan Ewell. I really appreciate the raid from our Majority Report friends. Smash the follow button if you want to chat. Smash the follow button. And even if you don't want to chat, I encourage you to smash the follow button anyway. I'm going to start talking about Black Ribbon Day pretty soon. At first, I was saying things in French. I'm just saying a bunch of things in French to trip people out. And what I was saying was like sometimes even if you speak French a little bit or you know the words, when people like similarly if English is your second language, you hear like someone use like idioms or expressions and it just doesn't make sense. And the one that always confused me, because when I was working in an office in advertising, it was like predominantly French. And the expression is dans le jus or dans le jus, which means like in the juice. So when you're just talking to someone, they're like, "Oh, I'm really in the juice right now." And you're just like, "What?" And it just means like, I'm really busy. I'm snowed under. But I'd be like, I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know. What's going on? That's right, Nick. We got some state-sponsored Holocaust revisionism going on today. I may have done some light Nazi apologia. And if you're just joining us, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about Black Ribbon Day. Black Ribbon Day is Canada's kind of fake fascist propaganda holiday, which is kind of legit. It's like a state-sponsored Holocaust revisionism in the sauce. Yeah, I guess that's the same thing, Sinchal. It's like double genocide theory. It's horseshoe theory. And we have an official day of commemoration. I guess it's a good time to get into it now that we've got this raid. I've been here for an hour speaking French. I guess we might as well talk about that. But they don't even give you the day off work. That's right. When did Black Ribbon Day start? That's a good question, because and this is something that because last year on Today, I spoke with Dan Beckner because Dan Beckner is like someone that I've learned a lot from over the years, about Canada's role in whitewashing fascism, which is really the story of the Ukrainian diaspora and Ukraine and what happened under Soviet Ukraine. It's a big part of that story. And Dan Beckner is someone that has been tugging at those threads for a couple years, and of course is being attacked for it now. Because Dan Beckner gives takes about Ukraine that are not just like the full Western Russia bad, Putin bad propaganda. He's now being attacked, and like people are trying to like call Arcade Fire's manager to get him in trouble for just having a basic, more nuanced understanding of these things. This is also the day slavery was abolished in Canada as an act of British Parliament. Guess which one the Prime Minister tweeted about too, and which one he hasn't. I wonder. I just wonder. So I would encourage people, if you want to learn more about the history of this, go back and watch the video that I made with Dan about this last year on this day. Okay, which I can actually link right now. You can go, and this I also encourage people, because I have like my own YouTube channel, and there's a TRRS live YouTube channel as well. So if you do want to go and learn more about the history of this day, I would encourage you to click the link in the chat there and go watch that interview with Dan. Not right now, Dakadoon. Baltic countries do be loving their Nazis. They do. And if we have that clip about Vladislav does anyone have that TikTok? That's a good way to get this started. Marcus Hess of the Estonian Central Council in Canada, the later chairman of the Central and Eastern European Council of Canada, proposed the name Black Ribbon Day and the concept of using black ribbons as a form of protest in 1985. He gathered representatives of affected communities and formed the International Black Ribbon Day Committee. And you know what's kind of interesting too is that when this day started, Black Ribbon Day, this is kind of interesting here. Oh shit, hold on. See if I can over here. Okay, just one moment. I got something interesting to show you here. Because it's very, I think, fascinating to go back and learn how these things, such as Black Ribbon Day, which are just like widely accepted as being just like bipartisan and just factual, when they started, it wasn't quite the same thing. So look at how Canadian media covered the inaugural version of this. Like what Pist was just talking about. This is how it was covered in the media. An anti-Soviet protest planned. A group financed in part by the right-wing National Citizens Coalition plans to stage a day of protest against the Soviet Union, which organizers say is intent on ruling the world. Marcus Hess, chairman of the International Black Ribbon Day Committee, said his group believes the Soviet Union wishes to orchestrate a slow and insidious takeover of the world. The committee, which released 2 television commercials Wednesday, is organizing protest rallies and observances on August 23rd in Canada, Australia, Sweden, the United States, France, and England. So this is how Black Ribbon Day was covered originally, as like, oh, this is like a far-right anti-communist thing, right? And then here's where it's gone today. And now, so you see how it starts there, and now we've got Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada. It's like this a big official thing. It's this big, and every year we talk about this now. Justin talks about it. Chrystia Freeland obviously talks about it because she's intimately linked with this exact kind of revisionism, historical revisionism about World War II and the Soviet Union and all that stuff. So just see the way that things have gone back. This narrative has taken hold, right? These narratives, this double genocide theory, this idea of the Soviets were just as bad as the Nazis, and communism, fascism are two sides of the same coin, horseshoe theory, double genocide theory, whatever you want to call it. This was not always this like accepted reality. It's been a process. It's been a long process of selling this version of history to people. And every single year it takes hold a little bit more until it becomes just the consensus. So you have Justin Trudeau saying, today we honor the victims and survivors of communism and Nazism in Europe. And we pledge to continue standing up for all those who continue to face violence and oppression at the hands of authoritarian regimes. And posted the TikTok and TRRS. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Blueberry. Very kind of you. Thank you. So I think that's kind of interesting how this process over the last couple of decades, not insignificant that he mentioned communism first. No, it is not. No, it is not. And as I mentioned in my tweet about this, you know, what this is, what we're talking about here is state-sponsored Holocaust revisionism. That's what it is. Because when we make the suggestion that, you know, that the rise of fascism and the Holocaust wasn't this like uniquely horrible, terrible thing, but was in fact just like it was just as bad as what socialists were doing at the same time in Eastern Europe, in Russia, in Ukraine, and all these other places, that is engaging in Holocaust revisionism. Especially when you take into account the fact that the society, the country, not just Russia, obviously, but the entire Soviet Union, played the most instrumental role in defeating fascism, which is, again, something that has been completely forgotten by history, or it's been completely distorted, this entire idea. And a lot of these victims of communism this is the tricky thing about this, isn't it? These very victims of communism were themselves fascists. And when you look into things like the Black Book of Communism, which is the way that people determine these figures, they include this. They include actual fascists who were killed under these regimes. That's how fucking weird Black Ribbon Day is we're suggesting that there's some equivalence between these two things. We're on one hand condemning fascism and at the same time condemning socialists for killing fascists. That is how fucking backwards this is. So it's a form of state-sponsored Holocaust revisionism. Let me see if I can open this Discord. You know what? I think this is going to open in my in my downloads. Yeah, it is. Let me see if I can put it in here. This TikTok is very funny about this subject. Shit. Because I need to watch it in the browser. Because if I have to open it in VLC, it's more complicated. Is the issue. The fascists are bad, but it's also bad to kill them. I'm very intelligent. Well, and you should see some of the very intelligent responses that I've gotten to this tweet about this, which we can take a look at. We can take a look at people arguing with me about this while simultaneously proving the exact point that I'm making, which is really quite fascinating. Do we have the actual link of Blueberry? I really appreciate you posted the TikTok in the Discord server. Do we have the actual TikTok link though? I've been thinking about how boomers were shitting in their diapers when the Nazis ran around, and after the silent generation is gone by the wayside, the Fourth Reich gets very active. Well, this is kind of what I was mean about the fascinating way that this narrative has taken hold. It's taken time, right? It's taken time. And that's the interesting thing when you get into like the whole Red Scare thing, is that we're living in like the shadow of we don't even live in even though the Red Scare is kicking off again now, we're living in like the shadow of the Red Scare. It was our parents' generation that got that the full blast of that Red Scare propaganda, and then we grew up being raised by them in being taught by these people in our schools, in our media. And it's not like I don't think a lot of these people sometimes are like fascists, but people internalize this idea of the evils of communism and the victims of communism, and this colors all our discourse about this. And looking at the ways that the real tragedy, we don't slaughter more Confederate dogs. I mean, a lot of very similar historical elements to the end of the U.S. Civil War and the end of the World War II, frankly, in terms of restoring to power the very fucking people that were carrying out the atrocities in the first place. Some very interesting connections there, actually. I believe it was Parenti that said something along the lines of, who is more willing to kill their own countrymen in the name of anti-communism than fascism? I mean, something that's been very helpful for me over the last couple of years is just understanding what anti-communism is, and understanding that anti-communism is just a synonym for fascism. And when you see like people in the United States government or the media, when you see them talking about anti-communism and you just replace the word fascism in that, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, that all clicks into place. You know, the whole our anti-communist strategy behind the Vietnam War or the Korean War or all the barbarism of the Cold War, you know? And it's like, oh, okay, I can understand a little bit more about what was going on there now. Okay, let's see. See, it's just tricky to show a VLC clip. It's kind of like more difficult. I do want to watch it though because it's funny. What about if I do this? What about if I do this? Let's see here. Oops. Is this going to work? No, I just see a black screen. I just see a black screen. I don't think that's very helpful. Why is it only black? Why is it just a black screen? Okay. You know what? Just forget it. Just fucking forget it. You probably gotta put no, but when I put it in the browser, it just download. It doesn't play. It just downloads the link. It's very strange. I don't totally know why. Nevertheless, open it in the Discord. You can go full screen and play within the Discord. Okay, let's see if I can pull this off. Okay? I'm going to go over here. This is the content that everyone loves. This is the content everyone loves.
Good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Try pressing play Kappa.
Login or password is invalid. It's over. It won't. I can't log into the website Discord for some reason. I don't know why. Okay? I'm not sure. I'm sorry. This is the kind of shit we love to see after 2 years of streaming. That's right. It doesn't even have the password saved on his own Discord. I go into the Discord often on my Chromebook using the web browser. So I don't see why it's saved in my Google Chrome. I'm using Chrome right now. And yet the password is not correct. Go, you figure that out. You figure that out. I don't know. Anyway, Dave, thank you very much for the 10 months of tier 1. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Just have to take my word for it that the TikTok is funny. Okay? Just take my word for it. Unless hold on. I gotta get one more shot at this. One more kick at the can. Okay? Why is it like that? I don't know. Oh.
Вот наш герой Родине. С коммунистами боролся и сделал нашу личность как страна. С коммунистами боролся. Когда? Вы мне сказали, что с коммунистами боролся. Когда? В какой войне? Ну, вы знаете, в 40-х. В 40-х? Да, правда, это что я сказал? Кто тоже боролся с коммунистами в 40-х? Не знаю. Как его зовут? Как его зовут? Не хочу сказать. Владислав, убийца евреев.
This dialogue every time when some dingbat from Finland talks about their grandpa. It's every fucking time. It's every time. Seriously. Each and every time. When they come on here, like, I grew up in Romania. How dare you praise the Soviet Union? And it's like, sir, what was Opa up to? What was he doing? What was he doing in the 40s? Come on now. And I mean, it ties together with Ukraine as well, because like that's what this whole like right-wing Ukrainian nation-building project has been about. It's been going on for generations now, and we're seeing the fallout of it right now. And it's all the same shit, all the stuff with Bandera and all this stuff. They fought the Soviets. They liberated from Soviet oppression. What else were they up to, though? What else were they doing? I don't think you're telling the whole story here. It's literally the same fucking thing. And you go into you go into Cuba as well. It's the same fucking thing every time. Every single time. And let's not forget our favorite Canadian. Exactly. Steve Bandera. Yeah, who's literally a Canadian journalist now covering Ukraine in Canadian state media. Steve Bandera. Very cool. Very good stuff. Stevie B. That's right. Hello, Vexing Thoughts. How's it going? I love how they named the streets around the Holocaust Memorial after Bandera. Yeah, exactly. It's like little on the nose. But that's what I mean. Canada plays a big role in this. And Canada's, not just Canada, but like the role that Canada has played as part of this like Ukrainian nation building project, right? With Canada's like the largest Ukrainian diaspora in the world. The thing that I always mention to people every single time this comes up, which is a very easy way to like understand this, which is that in the 30s, Canada's largest socialist newspaper was written in Ukrainian. And after the war was over, it became this incredibly right-wing Ukrainian diaspora because we imported scores of former fascists in Ukraine who had been involved in the massacre of Jews and Polish people and Roma people and other ethnic minorities as part of their own nation-building project. They came here to Canada afterwards and just destroyed the socialist-leaning Ukrainian diaspora that was there. in this country. That gets lost as well when we talk about fascism in Ukraine and the way that like fascism has become normalized in Ukraine. The big tragedy about that is that millions of Ukrainians correctly and bravely fought and died fighting fascism in World War II, which we should never forget about that. We shouldn't pretend that Ukraine is just filled to the brim with fascism. It's not accurate. There has been, though, a specific nation-building project that is designed to ignore that and to lionize figures like Stepan Bandera, who literally helped perpetrate the Holocaust. And that, to me, is the ultimate slap in the face of everyone in Ukraine or who elsewhere in the Soviet Union who fought and died fighting fascism during the war. It's the ultimate sign of disrespect and the ultimate insult to these people. The fact that this is how their sacrifice has been used, basically. Yeah, Canadian Ukrainians are just like Floridan Cubans. They're Ukrainian gusanos. That's exactly what they are. That's right. That's exactly what they are. And that's why we now have fascist monuments in Canada. Recognize that symbol. You've probably seen that symbol at a lot of these Ukrainian protests because all of this has become completely normalized. This is why we have, to those who died for the freedom of Ukraine, this is why we have monuments in Canada. This is an SS division. This is a Galician SS division that contributed to the Holocaust in Ukraine. And this is what Black Ribbon Day is about. This is why, and when people suggest that like Black Ribbon Day is equating the two, maybe on the surface level, that's what it is. But the real story of Black Ribbon Day is that actually one side was even worse. And it wasn't the fascists. It wasn't the Nazis. That's the reality. We certainly do love our Nazi monuments. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So Canada has played this role in promoting this concept, this double genocide theory concept, this horseshoe theory concept. The memorial to Ante Pavelic, who famously ran the worst concentration camp outside Zagreb, like when the Nazis showed up and saw it, they were like, what the hell? This is dark even for us. That's the whole thing about these guys. They were like, well, they fought the Soviets and the Nazis. When it's like the reason that they got persecuted by the Nazis themselves, because they were like going too far. They were being too violent and evil and doing too much genocide. Even the Nazis were like, ugh, this is like, you're being kind of problematic. That's literally like when they say, "Oh, they fought the Nazis as well." That's what they're referring to. And that is not an exaggeration. Like that's really part of our sort of national story. When the Nazis like, "Hey, let's be cool, man." That's usually not great. No, it's not great. It's not good at all. So you see the role that Canada has played in this, and that's the thing that I find interesting, and the way that this narrative takes hold. We looked at that news clip about Black Ribbon Day from the 80s, where it was correctly described in the media as just like an anti-Soviet far-right thing, and now you see how things have just advanced over the last 30, 40 years, where now you have the Liberal Prime Minister of Canada just being like, yeah, Black Ribbon Day is the day that we celebrate all the victims of communism and fascism, and suggesting that they're equal. You see how this is not something that took hold right away. This was generations of work programming this idea into people and promoting this narrative. And this is controversial. I think it might not be controversial in this community, but it's certainly controversial. But another part of this story is the Holodomor, right? Which has become accepted as this like basic, inarguable fact. The Holodomor and the Holocaust are just two sides of the same thing. That's part of Black Ribbon Day as well. And that is something else. And again, I know people don't like to hear this People don't like to hear this, and people may get, some of our lurkers or some other people might get mad at me for saying this. This is the reality, though, which is that in the 30s, when this narrative started to take hold about the Holodomor and the famines in Ukraine, it was widely acknowledged by people in the media and people that paid attention to this thing at the time as being like, at best, drastically exaggerated by fascists to create this narrative. This was like how this was widely understood. And if you go back and look at the origins of these stories, you can see the news stories that the way that this is framed was widely understood to be drastically overstated and exaggerated by fascists specifically to promote this narrative about double genocide. And you see over the generations, it's just become this incontrovertible fact that now you can't even, the things that I just said now, that there's plenty of people on Twitch or elsewhere that would call that genocide denial, because it's gone from this thing that was kind of like a very widely acknowledged to be an exaggeration of whatever the reality was, and just over the generations has become fact, just inarguable fact. Right? And the reality is it's not as simple as that at all. And you can go back and look at the research and look at the origins of these stories, and you can see how dubious it all is. And they're doing it with the Uyghur thing now too. Yeah, they are, but it's like they can't get away with it as much because we have so much more ability to see what's happening. The amazing thing about that, not to go off on a tangent, because it's all part of the whole victims of communism thing, but not to go on a tangent, but even Adrian Zenz, who is the source of every single news story about Uyghur stuff, even you look into what Adrian Zenz has said, he's like, oh, it's not a literal genocide. Like even Zenz himself is like, no, it's not a genocide, but it's a cultural thing. They're destroying the culture. They want to dominate and that. But like even Adrian Zenz is like, no, it's not a genocide. But that doesn't stop people from being like genocide. And if you ask these questions, genocide denier. Even the guy that's the source of all this information will openly tell you that it's not a literal genocide, but that is also just incontrovertible fact for a lot of people as well. It's a more of a vibes based genocide. Amazing that we talk more about the Ukrainian famine than we do the Bengali famine, nearly the same body count. One, it depends on who you ask. That's another thing about the Ukrainian famine and the Holodomor and all this stuff, which is that the number just keeps going up depending on who you ask. There's someone in my mentions today said 26 million. 26 million people deliberately killed by the Soviets in this famine, which even at the beginning stage of this like narrative taking hold was nowhere near that number. You know, it's like it was 2 million and then it was 6 million and then it was 12 million and it just keeps going up. We're like 10 gorillion. I mean, this is the whole joke about the victims of communism, the 10 bazillion dead and all this shit. There's people in my mentions right now trying to educate me on this. 26 million people killed is what they say, deliberately. But like, and I understand that it can be controversial to talk about these things, but this is the more that I've looked into this, the more I think it's actually important to push back on this, no matter how many people it pisses off, or people try to wield this against you to suggest that your views are somehow illegitimate because you ask these basic questions. Stalin personally killed 26 million, so I've been told. That's right. He literally went and just took their grain away and ate it right in front of them while they watched. And Stalin was just munching on the grain. It took a while, but he just ate all their fucking grain. And we mentioned the Bengali famine, which is something that we do know the exact figures of, and we see the evidence of it, which was a deliberate famine imposed on India by Britain, by Churchill, which was as horrific as, talk about the victims of the equating communism and fascism, which was as horrific as anything fascists did during World War II. And that's when I talk about like the way that these narratives have taken hold. Stalin is part of that as well, right? We've looked at the figures before about people's opinion of Stalin following the war, where it was completely uncontroversial to say that Stalin was like a really important and historic world leader that played this large role in defeating fascism. This was widely acknowledged. Like, this is like what people understood who lived through that era. And over time, you see the opinion shift because there's been concerted effort to promote this narrative suggesting that Stalin was just as bad as Hitler. And of course, no one believed this at first, but over the generations, these narratives take hold. These narratives take hold, and all of a sudden now you're growing up in the shadow of this propaganda campaign, and it's just truth. It's just the truth that you can never question. And of course, you can never say one good thing about Stalin. Ooh, oh no, you're a Stalinist now. Ooh, you can never say anything good about that, you know? And you can't even try to have it take the saying like, well, you can acknowledge that bad things happened. You should also take a look at the positive developments that happened and the good things that happened and try to have some kind of like nuanced understanding of this period. No, you can't even do that. You can't even do that. That's Stalinist as well to do that. The narrative is that Stalin is just as bad as Hitler, and if you step outside of that framework at all, you're a Stalinist, tanky, genocide denier, whatever you want to call it. Right? And this is my point though, is that these narratives, it took generations for these narratives to take hold. It took a long time. And we're just living in the shadow of it now. Now we're living in this world where these lies, these narratives have just taken hold in our culture and are just accepted as being incontrovertibly, inarguably true. Which is not, it's just not though. It's not the way history works, and it's not what happened. So many communists I know on social media will not acknowledge that anything bad did happen. I'd be an ML if it weren't for the MLs I know. Well, that's kind of what I mean too. It's like I don't think anyone should have a cult of personality on Stalin or anyone else, or pretend that it was 100% great, or that mistakes didn't happen, or that bad things didn't happen. I do understand though why people get it to that point though, because once they accept that this narrative is that they've been lied to, I think it's almost kind of understandable to just go all that way in the other direction. I don't think that's totally accurate, but like I do kind of understand that. Media itself has poisoned all of us in how we deal with the images that we see. Yeah. And so this is Black Ribbon. This is what it's about, right? It's like an official state sponsored version of this false version of history. No, people don't want to admit that they've been lied to. I've talked about it before, Lana. It's like people don't want to admit that they've been conned. It's if someone steals your wallet. I've used this exact analogy before, but just for the benefit of people that weren't there the last time I did this joke. When someone comes to your door posing as the wallet inspector and takes your wallet away, it's much easier to just, I think, stand there and be like, no, they'll be back any moment. No, I didn't just give my wallet to some stranger who's stolen from me. Psychologically, that's a damaging thing to have to accept, that you got conned, that you've been bamboozled. You've given your wallet to the wallet inspector. It's much easier to be like, no, he's going to be back any moment now. That wallet inspector is going to return any moment now. He's gone back to the wallet office to do the inspection. He'll be returning any minute. And you double down and triple down because it allows you to kind of hold on to something. And allows you to because when it's hard to accept that the version of history that you've been taught is not accurate. You know, that is a hard thing to accept. And that's why I think I understand why people go all the way in that other direction and become just uncritical Stalinists. Again, I don't agree with that, but I understand why people have that reaction to it. I donated that wallet. Sorry, I'm getting warm. I'm going to open my beverage here. Just take a brief moment here. And again, I'm talking a lot. My throat's getting sore already. I got a lime bubbly right here. It's all the condensation. It's very humid and muggy today. So I'm going to enjoy my bubbly here. Chin chin. I might have to take the flannel off. I wanted a different look today. I've been going all I've been going all t-shirts lately. I wanted to give it a little different vibe. I'm getting sweaty though. God's Own Drunk Soda Stream, you're violating BDS. I don't want to call you out or call you in, as it were, God's Own Drunk. You know I appreciate you. I'm sure I would enjoy having a soda stream, I think, because I enjoy soda a lot. Can't do it, though. Can't do it. Unfortunately. I didn't buy it. Okay, well that's not bad. And you can get the cartridges so you don't have to refill them. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't mean to call you in, God's Own Drunk. I got to take this off. I'm sweating here. Just dripping with sweat over here. So what? I'm wondering if we can watch like oh, you know what? You know what we should do? We should take a look at some of the replies to this, which I think this basic tweet about Black Ribbon Day and what it is and why it's state-sponsored Holocaust revisionism. There's a number of replies to this very tweet, which I think prove the exact point that I was making. Hey, Miss Squatch, what up? Oh yeah, a lot of people doing those faces in the replies. Ian just repped my TRRS merch at Costco. I saw as well your post, Ms. Squatch, about wearing the Rousseau Institute for Western Destabilization shirt at the bike store, if I remember correctly. I wonder if the based bike store employee has tuned in since that time. The bike shop, yeah, bike store. That's a weird way of saying it. Sorry, just give me a minute here. I'm getting hot. I'm getting hot talking about Stalin and stuff and all this stuff. Bike shop guy, speak up if you hear post a Momo emote. You're generating heat by moving like that. Oh, damn it. Damn it. So let's see here. It might actually be hard for me to see some of the replies because I think there's people that are muted. Oh, here's Canadian Dimension. And we can actually read. I could maybe just read this article as well. Canadian Dimension has a good piece about this, about debunking Black Ribbon Day. By the way, I don't know if you remember a couple of weeks ago, folks, when I was supposed to write something for Canadian Dimension and I was talking about how much I was struggling with it because my brain is so fucking bad that I just can't write anymore and I can only stream. And I ended up just giving up. I literally have like a paid writing assignment that they reached out to me to do. And eventually, after like a couple of days of just not doing it, I wrote back and I was just like, I can't. I'm sorry. I can't do this. So I just didn't do it. I used to want so much to be like a political writer. Now I've got political journals being like, hey, can you write for us? And I'm just like, I would like to. I would be happy to, but I physically can't. You don't know how to or you're unable to. I'm unable to because I have ADHD and I have my poor executive function. This is exactly why I stream instead of writing, because when I have a writing assignment And I just like keep putting it off for hours and hours and days and days and days. And it turns into this fucking agonizing process of doing it. And then I just feel horrible about myself because then you've taken so long to do it that it's nowhere even near worth the like $200 or whatever you're going to get paid for it. That's exactly why I do streaming instead, because I don't have to do like like an assignment where I have to think about it ahead of time. And I literally just I just have to turn on the camera and I just sit there. And then after a few hours, I turn off the camera and then it's finished. And that's exactly why I'm able to do this. And I'm not able to like write articles anymore. Turn up everyone with an underdeveloped frontal lobe. There we go. It's horrible. I always wanted to be like a political writer. I always wanted to be, or any kind of a writer, you know, I'm working on a screenwriting project right now, which is also stalled because I fucking physically just can't sit down and do the thing that I'm supposed to. Always wanted to be a writer, but I hate writing so much. It just makes me feel horrible. You don't like the No, I like the interactive element of streaming as well, Johnny. But I just mean that like it's like when I have to plan something, then I can't do it. I just can't. Like if I was like, okay, I've got to do this big thing and then the stream will happen as soon as I'm finished, I would never do it. What works is that I just know that at 12 p.m. or whatever time, I press a little button and the camera turns on and then I sit there for 5 hours and whatever happens during that time just happens. And then when it's over, I'm just finished and I turn off the camera and I just go on with my day. I literally just want medicine. Why is the entire process for getting medicine for my brain designed to be as hostile to people with my kind of brain as humanly possible? I was on Adderall for a while too, and I felt for like a few months, I felt like it was helping me. And then I felt the effects slowly stopping to work. And I felt as well, because I have addictive personality elements as well. Maybe refer to me as a addict sometimes, possibly. And I could feel my brain being like, you know what, you should just take, the Adderall is not really working so much anymore. Why don't you take a little, double up on those? How about that? That's what my brain was telling me. Why don't you start doubling up on those bad boys? And I could tell that I was going to a bad place. You know what I mean? I could tell that like, this is not going anywhere good. That's where I'm at, but I'm too much of an addict to stop. I guess that's the thing, Matt. I just told myself that like, this is not helping me anymore. If one feels good, two is twice as nice. There we go. Your brain makes you bad at keeping appointments, so we need you to go to 1,000 appointments to get the medicine to treat it. Yeah. That's what so I've just been freebasing reality since that time. So let me open that up. Okay, so yeah, we get the EU flag fucking weirdos here. Let's look at some of the replies to this benign tweet calling the Black Ribbon Day a form of Holocaust revisionism. Eugenius Krenis, what a curse to count, with a fucking EU flag. You want us to remember the Holocaust and Nazi war crimes, but displeased with reminders of certain state actively collaborating with Nazis. Curious. What a Reddit comment that is. And that's the amazing thing, how Black Ribbon Day is based on like the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. And as I talked about with Dan in the video we made about this last year, the amazing thing about like Black Ribbon Day and the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is the way that like everything that happened after the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact is completely ignored. All the stuff about the Soviets going to war against the Nazis and defeating the Nazis and sacrificing over 20 million people in the fight against fascism in Russia, in Ukraine, and also all across the Soviet Union. In the role that the Soviets played in encircling Berlin, resulting in Hitler killing himself, literally defeating the Nazis in the war. So everything that happened after that pact, completely forgotten. It's completely revised. It's down the memory hole, to use the Orwell language. Not only that, but everything that happened prior. History stops and starts for these people with the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Nothing that happened after matters, and nothing happened that before matters. Nothing about the ways that the West was totally A-okay with Hitler and with Nazi Germany in the run-up to the war. When Canada and other countries knew full well that Hitler was an anti-Semite who was persecuting Jewish people, we cared so much about that we turned away boatloads of Jewish refugees. That's how much we cared about protecting Jewish lives and protecting the victims of fascism prior to the war. When Germany was just persecuting communists and other non-desirables, Jews and Roma people and homosexuals and other marginalized groups in Germany and fighting the Soviet Union, that was A-okay for Canada and for the United States and Great Britain. We're totally fine with that. Tyler Shipley, my friend Tyler Shipley, the historian, has done a lot of great research on this, talking about Canadian Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King and his journals when William Lyon Mackenzie King met Hitler and was like, this guy's great. I love this guy. He literally wrote in his journal about how wonderful this guy was. Elites in Canada, political elites and business leaders in Canada and the United States were A-okay with the rise of fascist Italy and Germany, as long as they were directing their violence and genocide towards people that they did not like themselves. And as soon as they started moving west, and as soon as they threatened the global stranglehold that colonialist countries had on the global economy in the global south, primarily Britain at the time, eventually America, that's when it became a problem. And America gets involved in the conflict literally at the last possible moment, when it's basically already over, and then drops nukes on Japanese civilians. But that's what I mean with people like this, with Eugenius Krenis. The EU flag is so cursed. That's what I mean about Molotov-Ribbentrop, and the way that history just stops and starts right there. And none of the context previously matters. The ways that the Soviets literally had tried desperately to create an anti-fascist global alliance and were rebuffed at every turn by the fucking fascist sympathizing elites in Britain and Canada, the United States, and literally were just trying to stall the breakout of this conflict. And this was the last resort that was left on the table to them. All of the context prior to that is completely forgotten. Everything that happened after the pact, when the Soviets literally bled and died by the tens of millions to defeat fascism, also forgotten. It's pretty amazing stuff. So this thread by Raver Duck says, I don't understand this logic. How is one denying the Holocaust by acknowledging the many victims of Stalin and the NKVD? And we've already talked a little bit about this, right? And it's I didn't call it Holocaust denial. I called it Holocaust revisionism, which it is, because you're suggesting that the so-called crimes of Stalin and the NKVD and the so-called crimes of the Soviet Union are equal to the crimes of fascism and the Nazis, which is a form of Holocaust revisionism, because that is in no way accurate. Oh, is this person a transphobe as well? Pissed? Wow. So we got a number of chatters here, probably people in my mentions and probably some of you in the chat, talking to this guy. Let's go with what this baked goods thread, see if I can pick up the thread here, because the Red Army did the bulk of the fighting against Nazis. Also, the USSR was one of the few countries fighting to continue prosecuting war crimes, but US and others wanted to have their own Nazi war criminal scientists, NASA directors, etc. And this guy just keeps sea lioning. So you're just fighting the Nazis, make Soviet crimes vanish into thin air. All you're doing is covering up the crimes of Stalin. Why? He says. I would encourage other people to check out this thread. but there's a statement that I wanted to get to, which I can lead right here. And this is the amazing thing about this comment and about all this discourse, right? Because people are trying to explain to this person why this is important, why it's important that we don't equate these crimes. Right? So he says, so if one side in a war commits more crimes than the other, then we must never speak of the latter and must always separate the two, because otherwise, and he says, low IQ listeners might think both sides are equally bad. I was really amazed by this comment, because that's quite literally what Black Ribbon Day is. We're not talking about low IQ listeners that are getting the wrong idea here. We're talking about a state-sponsored version of this exact narrative, that they literally do believe both sides are equally bad. That's what Black Ribbon Day is. That's exactly the point that I was making about why it's Holocaust revisionism. This guy might think that he's smart enough to understand this distinction. That's literally what Black Ribbon Day is. And that is what people believe, not just low IQ listeners. This is a widespread belief. This is a widespread opinion. This double genocide theory that has taken hold, that both sides are equally bad. This is like literally the basis of all our understanding of these historical events, is that both of these sides are equally bad, and that only capitalist liberal democracy is the only sort of non-authoritarian way, a democratic way of organizing your society. That's the fundamental principle that our entire like historical knowledge is organized around. Literally, imperialism and capitalism have a more tight relationship. If there was a day to blame crimes of capitalism and imperialism against humanity, they'd lose their mind. One basic example of these crimes, slavery. Well, and this is Lamport. This is something that I want to get to, because I responded to this. And I said, people do think both sides are equally bad. That's literally what Black Ribbon Day and the post you're replying to right now is about. As this guy says, he says, in what way should people commemorate the victims of Stalin? And my answer to that is that unless we're going to organize a day to commemorate the many more victims of colonialism, imperialism, and capitalism, which vastly outstrips anything that we're talking about here. It certainly vastly outstrips any of these supposed crimes or these victims of Stalin, the victims of colonialism and imperialism and capitalism, for which the communist movement in general exists to overthrow that system of global mass murder and genocide and colonization. That's literally what communism is trying to overthrow that kind of power structure. So no, I don't think we should. I don't think we should be commemorating the victims of Stalin, and especially when we talk about the actual fascist victims. Not to say that everything that happened under Stalin was perfect, or that innocent people didn't lose their lives or weren't persecuted against. They were, but like, we should actually celebrate the fact that many of these so-called victims of Stalin were fascists themselves. And as long as we're going to completely ignore the much greater number of people that have been sacrificed as part of this global colonialist power structure that's been in place for centuries, no, I don't think we should bother doing that at all. I think we should focus more on fascism and our role in creating and abetting that. It is weird how anti-imperialist and anti-colonialist revolutionaries are so demonized in our liberal capitalist society. It is strange, isn't it? It's very strange. I think I will ignore the opinions of Raver Duck, as will I. And in fact, let's take a look at this piece. It's a 7-minute read in Canadian Dimension, debunking Black Ribbon Day. And actually, just read this piece. A Raver Duck has sent a silly letter. Man, I'm so warm here. Jeez. My basement is usually kind of cool, but it's like it's getting that end of summer mugginess. I've got my own little personal sauna going on down here. You know, one thing that I do think about a lot, though, as well, when you talk about, you know, the role that Canada and Western Europe and the United States played in abetting fascism, one kind of interesting phenomenon, and you can't infer everything from this. One interesting phenomenon when you talk about World War II, you talk about the countries that lost the most people in World War II, Russia and the Soviet Union and China as well, which we don't talk often enough. I think about the sacrifices that Chinese people made in fighting Japanese fascism and imperialism in World War II as well. I believe over 20 million Chinese people also died. Who are our two top global geopolitical enemies to this day? Oh yeah, Russia and China. Isn't that kind of a weird coincidence? You ever think about that? Or Koreans against Imperial Japan, which we talk about often, Johnny. My 22-year-old cousin died of a fentanyl overdose. Where's their fucking memorial as a victim of capitalism? I mean, we talk about it often, right? It just doesn't count. All the victims of like post-war, the U.S. imperialism in Southeast Asia, in Latin America, and all in Africa, all around the world, the Middle East, they just don't count. They don't count as the victims of capitalism or colonialism. Those are just things that happen. The Bengal famine doesn't count. You get a mulligan. You get a mulligan on those. And literally every single bad thing that happens goes into this under any socialist government goes into this ledger. You know, not to suggest that any of these places are perfect, as we always have to fucking point out for our pedants, lurking pedants. But yeah, if Cuba executes a bunch of fucking wealthy landowners or like Batista's police state torturers, that goes into the big ledger, right? And literally all the countless victims of colonialism, capitalism, and imperialism, the victims of the transatlantic slave trade, mass indigenous genocide in the Americas, doesn't count. It just doesn't count. They don't go in the big black ledger of victims of colonialism. You know? Afghanistan's starving right now today, not even in the past. Yeah, right today. The 37 million refugees that were created as part of the U.S.-led war on terror. You know who we talk about more in terms of war on terror victims? We don't talk about the million killed in Iraq and elsewhere in the Middle East, in Libya and Syria and Afghanistan and elsewhere. We don't talk about the 37 million refugees. We do talk a lot about Uyghurs and the Uyghur genocide as part of China's war on terror. We talk a lot about them. We kind of forget to talk about the 37 million refugees and the millions killed as part of the U.S. war on terror. They don't count as victims either, I guess. They don't go on that black book, that black ledger. We don't talk about arming both sides of the Syrian conflict for monies, and in fact, anyone that mentions that, we call them an Assadist. Anyway, let's read this story here.
Count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
Sunny Sola, thank you very much for the gifted sub. Very kind of you. Thank you. Western genocides were not committed for the sake of the economic system. Such a crazy generals are nutjobs. So sometimes we make mistakes. What, people aren't allowed to make mistakes?
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
It's almost like our concern is politically motivated and extremely racist. It do be like that, isn't it? Comrade Social Distancing, thank you so much for the 2 gifted subs. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. So let's read this article in Canadian Dimension about this. Oh, sorry. Before we do that, though, there's one more tweet I wanted to look at. There's one more tweet, because this is how widespread, as much as that Duck guy or whatever was trying to suggest that this is some like niche opinion that Black Ribbon Day is promoting, that these crimes are equivalent. This is literally widespread. Look at 7,300 likes on this tweet by Paul Massaro. Foreign policy, what a cursed bio this is. 200,000 followers for this guy, Paul Massaro. Foreign policy guy. Dictatorship, sanctions, corruption, illicit finance, Europe, Russia, China, Eurasia, human rights, democracy, rule of law. What a fucking cursed bio. And this guy says, the notion that the USSR saved Europe from Nazism is extremely silly. There would have been no World War II but for the USSR allying itself with Nazi Germany. This is what I mean. This is not some niche opinion that low IQ people misunderstand this idea. This is a widespread, widely believed narrative about the USSR and the Soviet Union and World War II. Millions of people believe this. And like I said, this wasn't the case in the 50s. It has been a long process of building this narrative and teaching this narrative to people, which has now taken hold and this is what most people believe about these historical events. This completely fucking backwards, ahistorical understanding of what happened. And again, this is Nazi apologia. This is what we're seeing with all the Ukraine stuff. We're seeing like Michael McFaul go on there and say like, Hitler was bad, but he wasn't bad like Putin targeting ethnic Russians and ethnic Germans and stuff. Like that's literally going on MSNBC, powerful elites from the US government and engaging in Holocaust revisionism. Look, Rob, you got to understand their position. If it weren't for the worms in their brain, they would have no one to keep them company. We do have to acknowledge that. It is actually a very common American and Canadian opinion. Canada has played a large role in creating this exact narrative. A very common American opinion that the people who fought the Nazis and the Nazis are the same, actually. And that's what Black Ribbon Day is. Black Ribbon Day is a celebration of that narrative. And like I pointed out at the beginning of this discussion, it wasn't always widely accepted like this. When this narrative began, it was treated correctly as being an incredibly dubious anti-Soviet far-right narrative. And it went from that to inarguable fact. This has happened like over my lifetime, basically. Paul Massaro. I asked him, who was it that encircled Berlin, causing Hitler to kill himself? Still have yet to receive a reply on that one. Paul, I know you saw. Paul, if you're watching this, I know you saw that. I've got the blue tick, Paul, or the white check if you use dark mode. I know you saw that reply, sir. Why are you not answering, Paul? Paul. Come on. Come on, sir. The Nazis were National Socialists. So, of course, they ally with communists. I'm also very smart. Yep. And again, to talk about a widely believed thing, this is exactly what people on the right in the United States government say. The mainstream political discourse has drifted so far right in our lifetimes. Yeah, now we have Kissinger is now a moderate. That's how fucking backwards everything is. If the Soviets would have stayed out completely, we'd be looking at Wolfenstein scenario right now. Stalin and the Red Army literally bullied a failed art student into committing suicide. He's literally neurodivergent and a minor. Like, people have been loaded with a lot of bullshit ideas, but they like the bullshit. They eat it out like a big bowl with a large wooden spoon and say, thank you, please keep the bullshit coming. They can't get enough. Well, that's the whole thing about America and like World War II films, right? Because they're the cowboys. They're the good guys. They're the good guys of history. And I know that we all understand that to be false, but that is a childlike understanding of history. But that's a narrative that it feels good to believe, right? You don't want to tell yourself that you're the fucking bad guys of history. it's much more comforting for someone to believe that, yeah, we're the good guys. We're the cowboys who came in and saved the day right at the very end. Right? It's comforting for people to believe this. It's childish. I think it's a childlike understanding of history, especially when all the information is actually available out there for you to learn the real history of it. But I understand why people latch onto this. I really do understand why. People at State and the CIA always thought Kissinger was basically a communist, which tells you a lot about how fucking psychotic they all are. Well, they thought Kennedy was, who like himself campaigned as a forceful anti-communist, and they were like, "This guy's too fucking dangerous. This guy's way too dangerous for us. We gotta shoot him in the head in Dallas. Gonna stop this guy." Yeah, the Roger Waters interview with Smirkonish, and seeing the reaction to that is seeing the way that this narrative has warped people's brains and people's understanding. Also worth pointing out, I think this is really an important point as well, the ways that the entire reason that the Nazis were one of the main part of it, the reasons were economic, but another reasons that our society and fascist Italy and Germany were anti-communist was because they viewed socialism as being a Jewish conspiracy. Always important to keep that in mind as well. Especially now with the way that things have been warped when it comes to Israel and when it comes to this narrative. Now people will say, if you're a socialist, you're an anti-Semite because you're against Israel. When it's that's how completely backwards this entire narrative is. The fact that socialism itself was framed as a Judeo-Bolshevik conspiracy theory. As a former lib, I literally had an existential crisis learning all this stuff over the last 6 years. Yeah, but Johnny, the cool thing about you is that you're here now. And that's really because I've had to go through that as well. We've all had to go through this because we all a lot of us anyways, most of us that grew up in the West. I know some of you grew up in different cultures and environments, but most of us, I think, grew up being taught that narrative history. And we've all had to go through this process of learning it. And that's what I try to use this platform for, either on Twitter or here or on podcasting or whatever, is doing what I can to peel away those threads for people. Or to just at least give people you reach a hand out into the fucking propaganda mess that people are inundated by. And you reach your hand and you try and pull people out. Right? That's what I feel like is what I've turned into my whole career and my whole work that I do, is trying to get people to at least ask these basic questions about themselves and about the history that we're taught. And this is why I think you have this really toothless socialist movement in the West as well, because you can't really be a socialist in this context, and people try to do it. And people say, yeah, of course I'm a socialist, but no, but then they will uncritically agree with and parrot back all these narratives about Ukraine, Stalin, the Holodomor, World War II, Molotov-Ribbentrop, and they say, "Yeah, I'm a socialist, but I reject all that. I reject all the Soviet Union. I reject China. I reject everything. But of course, I'm a socialist." And that's exactly why these movements can never take off, because they completely separate themselves from that tradition. And you can't simultaneously acknowledge that socialism is this terrible, evil thing that you want nothing to do with, or North Korea as well. And then say, but of course I'm a socialist. It's being in the fucking West, who have never organized anything or never had socialism remotely close to taking power in our culture. I'm a Western socialist, and socialism is bad, basically. That's how twisted people's brains are by these things. Someone in Ben's replies today made me want to pull my hair out. Yeah, I'm a socialist, but I'm anti-communist. I mean, that's the dangerous thing, right? When people are like, yeah, of course I'm a socialist, but not like a scary North Korea, Soviet Union socialist. It's like one of the Nordic countries. I'm like a Sweden or a Norway. And it's like, that's not good. But we don't want that, actually. You know? That's what I remember thinking, like, you know, I've watched a lot of like Novara Media content. I like some of the people that do Novara Media, but that was, and I remember Ash Sarkar had that famous viral clip where it said, I'm literally a communist. And I thought that was so cool. And then I read this big like piece about Novara Media and they said that exact thing. They were like, no, we don't uphold like Stalin or any of these terrible people. And I was just like, all right. All right. People glom onto socialism because they think that it can do for them, but stop at imperialism because it makes them feel complicit in benefiting from exploitation. Rather than seeing themselves as the revolutionary subjects, they have to educate on that specifically. Yeah, good. That's true, Lana. And yeah, the squad do that shit all the time. That's right. I'm a democratic socialist, which even saying democratic socialist implies that socialism is non-democratic. And if your only understanding of democracy is Western liberal democracy, yes, it is. But that's actually a good thing. And when you understand that, you'll see that socialism is actually more democratic than our current system that we have now. And all this narrative seeks to obscure that fact. In the West, you're allowed to imagine your socialism in 1,000 different ways, but achieving anything is taboo. Well, that was what Parenti said, right? That's the Western leftists, they love every revolution except the ones that succeed, right? Yeah, and I'm a democratic socialist. We need a strong Republican Party, and I need to meet with every single anti-communist dissident group from Tibet to Venezuela to fucking make sure that people understand that I'm not one of the bad guys, one of the bad ones. Socialism is when no restaurants and furries banned. That's it. Oh, boy. Communism in the West lacks internationalism and anti-imperialism the most, which is why it's so cool. Our socialist media outlets release an anti-tanky article every 2 weeks. Or they do this mental gymnastics to say, like, I'm against, it's the neither Washington nor Beijing thing, or the neither Washington nor Moscow, right? Those are the political geniuses that are like, I'm against U.S. imperialism and Russian imperialism and Chinese imperialism. While China's like forgiving multi-billion-dollar loans to African countries, people are like, I'm against all of this, actually. This is exactly the same as colonialism to me. And the people in Africa are saying, like, it actually is not. It's not like that. And we're like, shh. You're being a victim you're being colonized. You know? This is the result of this kind of the way these narratives warp our brains. You know? Okay, so let's finally read this piece from Canadian Dimension, debunking Black Ribbon Day. Then I think I'm going to move on. I think we've talked about this. We've had a good discussion about this. I'll probably move on after this. I'm still easing my way back into streaming. This is already the longest stream that I've done in a couple weeks since I got COVID. So that's just debt relief imperialism. That's how they get you. By forgiving all those multi-billion-dollar debts. That's how they really do that's how they colonize you. Okay. This is from Canadian Dimension, written by Taylor C. Noakes, debunking Black Ribbon Day. Lumping together the victims and perpetrators of Nazism and communism is a dangerous form of historical revisionism. August 23rd is Black Ribbon Day, recognized by the Government of Canada as an official day of remembrance. You know what I want to do? I want to, instead of like the kind of boring visual thing of looking at these words on the screen, I'm going to put on some Soviet World War II footage while we read this. How about that? Okay. A little loud, I think. We'll turn it down a bit. Sorry. 1 sec. Okay. I've got my levels good to go. Wait till the shit starts. August 23rd is Black Ribbon Day, recognized by the Government of Canada as an official day of remembrance. It is intended to commemorate the victims of both Sorry, I can't do it with dialogue at the same time. Should I just play the Internationale? Is that what I should do? Sorry, this segment will be cool, believe me, once I get there. Loop that. Loop that. Look at this. There we go. Okay. August 23rd is Black Ribbon Day, recognized by the Government of Canada as an official day of remembrance. It's intended to commemorate the victims of both communism and Nazism in Europe, and as such, falls on the anniversary of the signing of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, a 1939 non-aggression treaty between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. In 2020, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau described the pact as follows in an official statement. This alliance, which led to the violent political and territorial rearrangement of Eastern and Central Europe, caused immense suffering. Millions of people were murdered, countless others robbed of their basic rights, and many more forced to flee their homes and lands. This is a striking example of the deliberate rewriting of history to suit contemporary geopolitical interests that lies at the very heart of Black Ribbon Day. Though the Soviet Union did indeed sign a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany, it was only because months of negotiations with France and the United Kingdom to form a formal military alliance had failed. Hitler, though evidently expansionist and aggressively preparing for war by the end of summer 1939, was nonetheless fanatically opposed to communism. The French and British decided that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, rejected the Soviet proposal for a defense pact, and the rest, as they say, is history. The deadliest war in human history began less than 2 weeks later, and would ultimately kill anywhere from 70 to 85 million people across the globe. Europe was already being rearranged by Hitler well before the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was signed. It was hardly a joint effort at mutually beneficial empire building. Similarly, Hitler had been robbing people of their basic human rights, land, homes, and property for years, while Canada and the rest of the world ignored the problem and refused to admit Jewish refugees. It's very well documented. When it came to accepting Jewish refugees from Hitler's Germany, Canada's official position was, quote, "None is too many." This is the history we're meant to forget because it doesn't jibe well with our latter-day image of openness, acceptance, and progressive immigration policies. Indeed, the very next sentence in Trudeau's 2020 statement reads, "Many of those who fled found refuge and an opportunity to rebuild their lives in Canada." This flies in the face of history because Canada's fundamentally anti-Semitic immigration policies continued well after the Second World War. During the same time, Canada was welcoming hundreds of known, though perhaps thousands of suspected war criminals and Nazi collaborators, records of which are still kept secret from the Canadian public. What's more, some of those refugees had spent part of the Second World War destroying the lives of others, as often willing partners in a genocidal campaign of extermination. It is worth noting as well that while the Soviet Union did in fact occupy part of Poland in September 1939, a period known as the Phony War, because the Allies didn't do anything in response to the Nazi invasion of Poland until May of 1940, they did not occupy Eastern or Central Europe. Some of those countries, like Austria and part of what was then known as Czechoslovakia had already been annexed by Hitler. Italy and its empire were already allied to the Nazis, as was Hungary. Within a year or so of the Nazi invasion of Poland, Romania and Bulgaria had sided with Hitler as well, and Nazi-controlled puppet states existed in Croatia and Slovakia. The Baltic states, which had attempted to maintain their neutrality, agreed to Soviet protection at the beginning of the war and were subsequently occupied by the Nazis when they launched Operation Barbarossa and attacked the USSR in 1941. Holocaust scholars have noted that the civilian populations of the Baltic states were enthusiastic collaborators with the Nazis, particularly so during the Holocaust. In Lithuania, as an example, 95% of the country's Jewish population was massacred in just 3 years, the most thorough extermination of any Jewish population in the entirety of the Holocaust. It should be noted as well that this was not exclusively the work of occupying Nazi forces, but also civilian collaborators and the membership of local fascist organizations who committed thousands of often individual cases of murder, neighbor killing neighbor. From the Baltic to the Balkans to the Black Sea, Hitler's occupation of Eastern Europe was aided and abetted by fascist groups that looked to Hitler as a liberator and who viewed Jews as the agents of international communism. This is one of the many reasons why Black Ribbon Day ought not to be recognized, not in Canada or anywhere else. The victims of Nazism cannot and must not be lumped together with these so-called victims of communism. The, quote, victims of Soviet forces in the Second World War were the Nazis, their collaborators, and the various fascist puppet states who allied with Hitler. Eastern European Jews fled the Nazis to the safety and security of the Soviet Union, where they then took up arms to fight back against the Nazis. The USSR was ultimately our ally in the conflict and picked up the lion's share of the casualties. Make no mistake, it was the Red Army that did an overwhelming amount of heavy lifting in the conflict, resisting Hitler's onslaught for years, while waiting for the Anglo-American side of the Allied alliance to open up a second front in Western Europe. Moreover, it was Soviet forces who liberated many of the Nazi death camps. When the Prime Minister or other politicians ask us to remember the victims of communism on August 23rd, whether they know it or not, they're asking us to remember our Nazi enemies and their supporters. Black Ribbon Day is inextricably tied to something called the double genocide theory, described by David Katz as the primary new mainstream form of Holocaust denial. It's an idea that gained prominence in the Baltic states toward the end of the 1980s, and in turn was inextricably linked to the efforts of Baltic state nationalists and their supporters in diaspora communities to secede from the Soviet Union. The theory is that Europe suffered from 2 genocides, the first led by the Nazis against the Jews of Europe, and a second led by the Soviet Union against the local populations of the parts of Eastern Europe that fell under the aegis after the Second World War. This, too, is highly problematic. For one, the Nazis didn't just massacre Jews during the Holocaust, but Roma, Sinti, members of the LGBTQ community, Jehovah's Witnesses, Slavs, socialists, communists, people with mental and physical disabilities, and all manner of political dissidents. The Soviet Union simply did not carry out genocidal campaigns of extermination against local populations after the Second World War. Though the Soviets were far less interested than the Anglo-American allies, Canada most certainly included in rehabilitating ex-Nazis. This is not to say that the Soviet Union under Stalin was any kind of utopia or that Stalin didn't commit war crimes and crimes against humanity. The massacre of Polish officers in the Katyn Forest is evidently a war crime, and the and the Holodomor was certainly a genocidal crime against humanity, even if there is still some scholarly debate about whether it qualifies as a genocide. And this is Canadian Dimension being Canadian Dimension on that one. But to allege that the Soviet Union carried out genocidal campaigns against the local populations of Eastern and Central Europe in the 45 or so years of communist domination after the Second World War is absurd. Aside from the fact that there is no evidence of widespread genocides having occurred during that time, it omits the fact that the majority of the populations of these countries strongly supported both local communist organizations and their Soviet allies, as these were the liberators of much of Eastern and Central Europe. Supporters of Black Ribbon Day often claim that communism killed 100 million people. This figure is not accepted by any mainstream historian, chiefly due to the fact that it comes from a single source, the Black Book of Communism, the methodologies of which have been thoroughly discredited. But the book, a key reference point for the right, succeeds in trivializing the Holocaust and the crimes of Nazi Germany. Doing so has real-world ramifications. Consider as an example how much of the mainstream press has limited coverage, downplayed, or even denied the very real evidence of Nazis and white supremacists in the ranks of the Ukrainian Defense Forces. While most Canadians recognize that Holocaust denial is wrong, commemorations such as Black Ribbon Day are designed deliberately to relativize the Holocaust and even the entirety of the Second World War. At a time when hate is growing in our society, we need to ask ourselves whether the blurring the historical record, largely to suit contemporary political interests, is making things worse. It isn't just that anti-Semitism is on the rise. It is that an alarming percentage of high school students have no idea that the Holocaust even happened. Canada already has a problem with monuments to Nazi collaborators and war criminals, some of which have received federal funding, and a largely secret history of welcoming war criminals and collaborators while we were still excluding Jewish refugees. No good can possibly come of this. If those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it, I can't imagine what fate awaits those who actively participate in the destruction and distortion of the historical record. That's it. That's Black Ribbon Day, folks. That's Black Ribbon Day. Just one more time. This is the best version of the Internationale I think ever recorded. It was okay until he said this was definitely a genocide, although it was disputed by historians and no evidence of genocide was found. That's I agree. I don't think you really gain anything in that article by including that information. We got to go to Pyongyang as a community. Right? We do. We're going to do it. We're going to go. We're going to go and do a TRRS meetup in Pyongyang. Okay? I don't think I can make it, but I hope you all have a fun time. Well, thank you, Brandon. Visit the dystopian water park, the very scary water slides. You very authoritarianly go down the water slides for a day of fun in the sun. I would love to go to a wrestling show in Pyongyang. I would absolutely love that. I bet you could find a sponsor for the trip and for us too. Well, this is what the think tank is going to be all about. Once the think tank is really up and running. The first place I'm going to is the revenge pledging place. You don't even go to the museum. You skip the whole museum. You just go to the revenge pledging place outside the American War Crime Museum. You just go right to the revenge pledging place. I do want to go to the American War Crime Museum though in Pyongyang. Absolutely. So folks, I got to get going soon. This is already the longest stream that I've done for a little while. I'm sweating. I'm sweating here. My throat is sore. But I would encourage you, friends, if you've enjoyed hanging out on the stream today, if you've enjoyed the stream, if you like being part of the community, please subscribe. Subscribe. It costs $5. It costs $5 to subscribe to the channel. You get all the emotes, all the wonderful emotes that we have in this channel. You support the work that I do, and you support the community. It helps me a lot, and I appreciate it a lot. And I know, again, I know the sub goal has been kind of ambitious lately because of the fact that I'm just not doing very long streams. I understand that I don't need to hit the sub goal every day when I'm only doing 2-3 hours. But if we could just get a little bit closer. If we could just get a little bit closer. You may not have your health, but you have your looks, and I speak for everyone when I say that's what matters. Thank you, Quaker Oats Guy. Thank you.
You've just become an elite member of the Friendship Triangle.
Oh, goodness. Only fact. Only fact. Thanks so much for the 5 gifted subs. Very, very much appreciated. Only fact. Very, very kind of you. Dakadoon, you don't need to gift you don't need to ditch the tier 3 sub. You don't need to do that.
You can count on me. You're going to have good old Rob to talk you through all this.
The way the site wants you to stream forever with no promise of remuneration is so good. I love it. I love it too, Lana. Wonderful. And thank you, Kijiji, for the gifted sub to our friend Brandon. There we go. I really appreciate that, Kijiji. Thank you. Oh, I gotta take a break from talking now. Now Brandon is contractually mandated to visit the DPRK. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. That is in the contract. That's in the subcontract. That's in there. Oh, I got some nasal stuff happening. You don't want to hear that. You don't want to hear any of that shit. I'm just wondering. If I could just find the one. I'll just take in one more look into my tweet here about the thing about the 26 million. I thought that was pretty funny. 26 million people killed under Stalinism. That's so many people. Yeah, here it is. I found it. Good. Look at this. Like, this is the shit that's in my mentions about this, folks. This is how deranged this is. This guy Chandler, who has a correct statement, says equating the crimes of Nazism to communism is literally a tactic made by neo-Nazis so that they can argue the Nazis were good. Such a horrible comparison in historical revisionism. Especially the scale between the two is insane. Chandler, absolutely correct to say this. Well, and then this is response. Communism has killed 27 million people in the Holodomor. 27 million people. And 50 plus million in Mao's famine. Total count exceeds 100 million. Nazism has killed 18 million. I agree the scale is insane, with communism killing 5 times more people than Nazism. This is the whole... Thank you, sir, for proving my exact fucking point that I was making. This man is, or whoever it is literally saying that not only are the two sides equivalent, but that communism is significantly worse. And is posting this Medium article about this. They've proved this with a Medium article. Nazism or communism, which ideology killed more people? That's how fucking deranged, that's how backwards and completely poisoned people's brains are by this relentless, decades-long propaganda narrative. Holodomor 27 million, Mao 50 million, Kim 880 million, a total easily 1 billion. Let's crunch some numbers. There we go. Come on, man. It's wild. Like, people believe this though. People really believe this. And yeah, when you go into like the famines in China, of course, and there was famines in China as well. I think it's somewhat understandable that this incredibly impoverished nation filled with over 1 billion people, it was actually difficult to make sure that every single person was getting what they need to eat. I think that's like a fairly common phenomenon. But then you see life expectancy double over that time. Which doesn't count, I guess. That doesn't go as part of the ledger, right? The way the living standards and life expectancy drastically improved in both the Soviet Union and China. That obviously doesn't count. Even under Stalin. You look at Soviet life expectancy under evil it's Stalinist to say this. Oh no. But massive increase in life expectancy and living standards under even the evil, just as bad as Hitler, Stalin. Population of Ukraine in 1930, 25 million. There we go. This is what we're dealing with here. Like, people believe this shit. People believe this. Communism causes famine. They point to the rivers drying up due to climate change today. Yeah. You know, it's a completely backwards understanding of history. This is what we've all been taught. And it's part of our job to overcome this and to educate others about the actual reality of it. $100 bajillion dead, Vuvuzela socialism, no iPhone. Thank you, Lana. That is literally what people uncritically believe in our culture. That is what they quite literally, completely uncritically believe. It's not good, folks. That's very loud, sorry. Infantilized society. It is. It's completely fucking childish. This kind of felt like a classic TRRS stream, didn't it? I'm getting my mojo back. We're kind of feeling like it's going back to normal a little bit. Are the Michaels still arranging DPRK tours? They should be. Okay, we're gonna talk to our Michael sources. The mojo detector's going off. Oh boy. Oh boy. I do have my friend and colleague Jordan streaming on TYT right now. I don't know if I want to raid Jordan's stream with my tanky audience. I feel like that would be maybe, I don't know if that's good to do right now. We got DJ Mule as well. We got Midwestern Mark streaming, and God, Midwestern Marks is such a problematic fave for me. I really do like Eddie from Midwestern Marks and the work that he does talking about imperialism and talking about these exact things. But they've gone too far down the Maopanite patriotic socialist thing. I don't know. Yeah, the anti-woke thing. I don't know. I don't know if I could do it anymore. No one be weird, okay? No one be weird. Act normal. All right. Anyway, thanks again for watching, everyone. Thanks for hanging out today. This was good. The thing about Norm and Stalin is funny. Yeah, that's as well. I've seen that. Stalin, Hitler's greatest enemy. Thank you, Brandon. I'm glad you enjoyed the stream. Did you listen to the Revlev? Yeah, the Revlev Stalin episode is a must listen. Very, very informative and interesting, and very nuanced. I would encourage anyone that's interested about the subject to listen to that. The stream was great. I wish it was 3 times longer. I will get back there. Thanks again, everyone. I'll talk to you tomorrow. All right, I'll be back tomorrow. I love you. Goodbye.